And the next video is going to be the recapping. There are a number of phases of this, but we're going to start with the big smoothing capacitors, which are in cans, and these are notorious for going leaky and failing as time goes on, as the years pass. And if you look inside this amp, you'll see that I think 2 of them must have failed because they've got new capacitors kind of strapped across the terminals. It looks lousy, and whilst it might work providing the old caps haven't gone leaky, if the old caps have gone leaky and short circuit, then it's not going to work at all. So that's got to be done. That's the first stage. Today's task, should I choose to accept it, and believe me, I don't feel like accepting it, is to remove these 4 cans. As far as the replacements are concerned, I'm going to start with these 2 because they're the easiest ones, but I might as well get them all out now. So it's a matter of either desoldering or cutting the wires. I'm going to try to desolder them, but if they've got some slack on, I'll cut them. This here is the cable that comes up from that bodged in capacitor that's on the top. I'll cut that, and that will just pull out like a rotten tooth. This one also is an extra. This one here, that's an extra that can come out. So that's what we've got to do. So I'll get set up. So the first thing we're going to do is to get these wires off here, and I've tinned the iron. I have this kind of solder sucker to start with. Let's see what kind of a mess it makes. God, I haven't done this since my old BBC days. Let's try some solder wick. We'll see whether this is any better than the solder sucker. Oops. Well, it's supposed to suck up the solder, but I don't know. I really don't know. And also, to clear the decks, let's get rid of this. This is the extra cap, so that can be pulled out, and I know where that goes. And we've also cleared this as well, so just twizzle those together, and that go together, and that is that one cleared. So that's C232 cleared, C232, now C231. So bit of solder on the iron, and away we go. We're always in a fine line between getting the solder off and having to put more solder back on again to keep the joint wet, you know. Otherwise you just never get anywhere. So the blue and the resistor go together, Now we have this one. And also I've taken the two yellows off, so these are the two leads for that capacitor there. And now I'm gonna check those caps and see what they were actually measuring. I've got the meter to do it. So here's the capacitance meter here. We're gonna plug that in. First of all, switch it on, and then we zero it with no leads on. Okay, as close to zero as we're going to get. And now the positive is always the middle terminal on these caps. So as they're electrolytic, they are dependent on polarity. So I'm going to connect this here and that to there. 3700 mic, it says. 3700 mic, and they should be 3000 mic, so that cap was good. Let's have a look at this one. 3500 mic. So again, both of those caps were actually good, but we're replacing them anyway because they're old, they might be a bit leaky, they'll be worn out. But what I'm going to do now is to go around these two remaining capacitors, which are, let's see, what is it, C301 and C302, and get all the wires off. You don't want to watch me do that, it's just more of the same, and I don't want to start swearing on air, and that's likely what I might start to do, especially when I get around to this. Okay, so I'm gonna take those out and then we'll remove them. Okay, so that's got all of those terminals off. So now I've got to figure a way of getting those, what I think are pop rivets, out. Let's hope they are pop rivets, because you should be able to just drill them out. Well, we can see why C301A had been replaced with this puppy, which is 33 mic, because it should be 50 microfarad, and looking across it, it's 4 picofarads, so that capacitor is completely and utterly failed. So C301A should be 50 microfarads, and if we come over here and see there, it's measuring 57, so that's a good one. And C302B should be 200 mic, and it is measuring 198 mic, so that one is good. So some of these caps are either on their way out or completely kaput. Well, I don't know about you, but these look like pop rivets to me. So if they're like any pop rivets I've ever dealt with, I should be able to drill them out. So let's have a go. Apologies for any of you guys that don't like dentists. Where are we? Lord above. Lord above. Here we go. Let's try this. Trouble is I'm in my own light. Yes. Yes. Okay. But what I have to do is to get the vacuum cleaner on this pretty quick. So, one pop rivet out. So I think I'm just going to go around now and knock out the others, and we should be able to withdraw these caps. All the pop rivets are out and all the caps have kind of fallen through. So if I lift the amp up and turn it over, we should be free. Alright, the amp is up and off, and here are all the cans, which now we have to find a way of opening. And here's the loose tooth. What was it? What was the value? 470 mic. Okay, probably substituting one of those 500 mics that have gone bad. Okay, so let's get all this cleared up. I managed to separate the base from the can, which should allow me to open up the can. I've got to clean up these. It wasn't an easy job because there's all sorts of solder stuff on these tags, kind of holding it all together, you know, but I managed to do it, so I'll just carry on and do the rest. Alright, so let's fess up to a mistake, shall we? Although, I'm going to say, it wasn't my fault, it was the instructions. Now, the instructions I got with this recap kit, it doesn't really say anything about removing the cans from the device itself. And it doesn't say anything about these mica base plates either, which are held to the can by these connectors here, which go through. And not only do they go through, but to lock them in, they're twisted. And so you need to, I thought you needed to get this mica base plate off, and then you can unwrap the can from below. That's the way that the instructions tell us to do it. But the very action of untwisting these tends to either snap them or break the mica base plate, and these are pretty well irreplaceable. So I managed to get this one off okay, although I'm not going to pull it off now, but you'll notice here that this tag is snapped off. Doesn't 100% matter because all of these are connected to the can, so these are the negatives and this is the standalone positive. And so when I did actually get one of the cans off, I decided to open it, and I'll show you how I did that later with this one when I do it. But it's pretty well impossible to unwrap this can from below the way the instructions say you should do it. There's no way I'm going to be able to peel this back, and I'm going to be able to peel it back with these tags on. No way, no way at all. So I had to use the alternate method, and that is to saw the cans at this point here. So this then becomes kind of free, and then you have to heat this with a hot air gun to melt all the horrible gunge inside, and then you can pull it apart and snip out the horrible gunge. So what I'm having to do now is to repair the base plates that I broke. I mean, this is the worst one, and I broke it and I've epoxied it together, and this will be sanded down. It should be up to pretty well full strength now. This will be sanded down, and if I have to put in a bit of filler here, I'll do that. No one will ever know the difference. So, made a mistake, but not 100% my fault. I'm now going to remake C231, although it could equally be C232. They're identical. So, as you've seen before, all the gunge, the capacitance shite has been removed from inside. It's leaving these two little tags here which I can solder onto. So now I have to get the replacement cap and see how it's going to fit in this can. So C231 and 232 were 3000 microfarads as fitted by the manufacturers, OEM. So I found this in the kit, which it's actually not very well lit, but it is 3300. So that's going to do. And that's going to sit in this can here and be connected onto that base there. And just to be on the safe side, I put my capacitance tester on, and it's reading just a little under 2,900 mic. Close enough for television. Alright, so let's attempt to tin these two terminals up here without melting anything. So there was a slight change of plan. I did in the end have to drill through the base and solder the connections of the capacitor directly onto the tags, because what was left of the tags inside will not tin, and on the terminals now we've got 3000 mic, which is what we should have. Okay, move on. Let us open up another cap, just so you can see how I did the first one. This is the next one on the list. So this is how I did it, and I'll say again, I'm having to do it this way because I cannot open the base of this up. It's way too thick, and it's just going to end up in a disaster if I do. So should never have taken these bases off. Anyway, here we go. Gradually work your way around. Keeping as tight into that rib as possible. And this time I've marked the two sides. You can see the black mark coming up now. Okay, I've gone round once. You don't need to watch the whole procedure. And now, because I've bogged up the separation of the cans, I should never have taken the bases off the cans. I should have just cut them apart. So I've had to repair the bases as best I can with epoxy, and now you see me just sanding off the excess. I've already done this side, and now I'm doing that side. So it's going to be a long job. So there we are. There are all sorts of cuts in it and God knows what else, but I filled those up with epoxy and sanded it down, so when it's back inside the amp you'll hardly notice the difference. You'll notice there's a little nick missing from there, but I'm not going to repair that. When it's back in the amp it really won't be visible. So anyway, there's that one, another 3 to go. And this is how it goes back together again after the cam was cut open. Here is the base, and I don't know if you can see that, but you have to drill a couple of little holes in the base and poke the capacitor through and then solder it on to the pins, and that's obviously where the wires go there. And just as a double check before we put it all back together again, and you see, well, I don't know if you can see, but here's the positive end of my meter, and here's the negative end. $2,800 mic, more than it should be, but better than less. And now what we have to do is to glue this back together again, like that, in as neat a way as we possibly can. So that's the next job. Here's one I did earlier, and I've also futzed the base that it will go on as well, because that's what holds it in. So that base has been glued on. Hope it never needs to come apart again. There we go. Okay, now you just watch it be difficult. You've got to try to get an even rim all the way around, and that's just about it there. So it's 5-minute epoxy. It's very epoxy, so you don't want to watch me holding this for 5 minutes, do you? So let's I'll bring you back afterwards. All right, so today we're going to refit C231 and C232, because they're the easy ones. I haven't opened up the big ones yet to recap them, so just going to do that. So first off, C231 ready to go back in, which goes in there, so got to get it bolted in and then we can connect up the wires. All right, so that's the 2 caps installed, not connected up. So there's C231 and there's C232. So now I've got to connect up the wires that came off. So just before I commit myself, I'm just measuring that cap now internally, and yes, it's giving me the 2800 mic reading. All right, there's C231 soldered in place. Next one, C232 up there. And here you can see it in the circuit diagram, and as if by magic, checked off. So once again, I'm measuring it, installed, before I connect any wires up, and I have got the capacitor. Good boy. And there is C232 attached. I've also vacuumed out around there. There was a little bit of solder residue. So all in all, that lot is not a bad job. And we can tick these off the list. This is where C232B sits in the diagram, and checked off, done. And this is our list of capacitors, and we can cross those 2 off the list. Okay, I just reviewed the videos of today, and somehow or other, some of the videos that I thought I shot yesterday, aka separating the 2 halves of one of the small cans, I've not got. So you haven't seen what's inside. You haven't seen the dog poo that's inside this. So, well, I got some time, so let's at least open up these 2. I'm not going to do anything else today, but I'll just open them up and you can see. So this is the procedure. This part you've seen before, the actual sawing the cans, but for some reason or other, when I separated them, I've got no video record of it. So this, you see, I'm going around. Notice I've marked the 2 edges so they will fit back together as closely as possible. Well, you don't need to see any more of that. So it's cut through. Now, it won't pull apart unless I got the wrong tool here. Thrice the wrong tool. So what we've got to do is grip that end like this, and then with our trusty heat gun, we've got to heat this up. because this melts, or semi-melts, the dog poo that's inside and should enable us to pull the two halves apart. I'll be careful here because this gun gets hot. This time I'm definitely recording. Here we go. Out. See all the tar and shite? And now, somehow, God, I even hate the smell of it. So, somehow, I've got to get down into there and separate it. So, wish me luck. This is just horrible stuff. Okay, dog poo. Yes, I'm still recording. And though I haven't got any tags left, I don't think it's a big problem because I couldn't tin those tags anyway. As long as these are still solidly in there, which they are, I can drill down through those. And ouch, that's hot. And this can be cleaned up. This can be cleaned up later. So that's how you open them up. And I've got one more to do, which you don't need to watch. Once again, I'm going to have to deviate from the plan because these three, where are you? These three caps here do not fit into this can when they're gathered like this, which is what the instructions say. I've tried and it's only just a little bit, but they will not go in. I've tried forcing them, I'm just going to distort the can. So I'm going to have to make other arrangements. So after much cussing and drinking cups of tea, this is as far as we've got so far. And these two are going to go down to the bottom of the cap here, and these leads will go through the base, and then this one somehow will have to be forced down on top of them like that. So it's all going to be a bit grim. If I get this done today, it'll be my target. So cha-cha, cha-cha, slow, slow. The capacitors are mounted in there now. The green wires are the negative legs. The red ones are the two 2000 mic positives. And that little black one that you can see sticking out there, that's the 50 mic positive. So this is going to be a hell of a job. This has now got to be drilled so that I can get those wires to stick through and mate up to these tags. Good luck, Graham. So this is the biggest cluster effort I've ever done. I don't even know if it's going to go in the can right now. It ought to, but anyway, all the terminals are on. Let's see if I haven't wrecked any of these capacitors trying to do it. So that's the one that should read 50. In fact, it's a 47 mic in there, so it's kind of within spec. It's 43 mic. So was it 10%? Just about. This is one of the 2000 mics, and that's the other one. So The caps are intact. Now all I've got to do, is get them in the can. It does go in the can. So what I've now got to do is araldite this and push it home. Then retest it and hope for the best. I'm hoping to accelerate the epoxy. It's very difficult getting these two halves of the cans in the right place relative to each other. And it looks as though the epoxy is going off, but it sure as hell ain't no 5-minute epoxy, as I put this on best part of half an hour ago. So I don't know. Let's give it a helping hand, shall we? 'Cause I want to get this one back in the amp this afternoon. Call me crazy. Today's task is to take this, the first of the completed large cans, and put it in there, in that hole there, and get it wired up. And then after that I'll move on to stripping down this can and getting that ready for putting in. You won't need to watch that because it'll just be more of the same. Well, we have to get it the right way round in the hole. So the key here is to get this 50 mic capacitor kind of inboard from the rear, and my imagination isn't sufficient to do it from this way up, so I gotta kind of get it aligned looking at it from below. So there it is, that's hooked on, and we're going to double check again, make sure that all the caps are in the right place and are still working, because once they're connected up it's not too easy. So let's connect a negative onto there. This one should be 50. This one should be 2000. And this one should be 2000. Yes, okay, check. And the two positives of the 2000 mic capacitors have got to be connected together, and then this violet line off from that resistor needs to go on. Okay, that's that. There's the violet there, and there's the connection between the two. So that is the violet coming in and the connection between the two. Easy, ain't it? And this is connected the red up to the positive side of C50 there. And now I've got to futz around with these resistors. And thinking about it, it's going to be really difficult making a link, excuse my finger, through this connector here to two connectors on this can without this can being in. So really I've got to refurbish that can and install it before I can finish this off. So this is now as done as we can get it. So gonna have to do the next can, but you don't have to watch that. So this is where we're working in the circuit right now, and this is what we just put in, and this is what we had installed, and now this is what we just put in. Well, this is how they've all fitted in. They have fitted in, and I've tested them, so they're okay. And then the next challenge we've got is getting this kind of down into there and glued on. Boy, can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to that. Sorry. But anyway, I need to go out and buy the glue before I can do that, so I can postpone that evil moment for a bit. This is the last of the cans now. It's been filled, reconstructed, and cleaned and glued back together, and we'll now install it back in the amp and connect it up, and then that's the cans done. So that's all 4 of the cans back in and mounted. Great. Now for the wiring. The first wire to connect up is the black wire, because that is ground, and I just hooked it to ground just to check that it really is. It's rather a high 1 ohm. It's rather high, but it's there. it might be going via a long convoluted route. So that has to go on one of these pins here. And the other thing I'm doing is just checking the CAN connections are isolated from ground, which they are. So the black wire is connected there. Next wire, I think, is going to be the orange and white, which should go to the 50 mic capacitor. That is this orange and white wire here, which goes down to the 50 mic capacitor. Now unfortunately I've screwed up the wiring inside this can, and it should go on this tag here, but I think it's probably going to be on this one here. But thanks to my trusty capacitance meter, I can check it. Yep, it's on that one. I've got these two swapped. It's on that one. So let's see if the wire reaches. Alright, so it's soldered on. There we are. Now comes the slightly more tricky ones. This resistor R301 has got to go from this pin here up to this one here, which is a 500 mic capacitor. So it's already been cut short. I've got to doctor this so it fits in nicely. So I'll get back to you when I've figured out the way of doing that. So there we are. It's now got long leads on it. It's nicely insulated. Let's see if we can fit it in. So there it is. There's the 55k resistor in. That's going from the 50 mic with the red wire going up here to the 200 mic with the green wire. Like I said, on the wrong tabs, but at least with that capacitance meter I can sort it out. And this one here is going from the 50 mic to the 500 together with the red and the white wire. All the others we've gone through that before. So that's all connected up now, and normally I'd be switching this on to check the power supply voltages, but ain't going to do that because we've got these capacitors around here to replace as well, but that's going to be on a separate video as this one has dragged on way too long. So we'll do that, then we'll switch it on and test the power supplies. Wish us luck. So this is where we were with the first can, and now we've installed this plus something else which you'll see. There was a third capacitor in that can, C302C, and I couldn't find it anywhere, but there it is. It was a link to a circuit board. This is where we were after the third can, and this is where we are now. So that's the end of the can capacitors. I'm going to stop this video now. It's a lot longer than I really wanted, but I don't feel like splitting it up as such. So we'll cover the cards and the rest of the electrolytic caps in the next episode.